So we know that the LSAT is an important tool, of course. Gosh, I know that. There we go. These are the test dates that are coming up. We know we've had, one just had already passed that we left off, but the one coming up is going to be starting this week. That's an Lsat Flex. LSAC has already announced that the November test will be a Flex. And then the 3 other test dates that they have posted. At this point, a further determination has not yet been made. I'm sure all of this will be guided by health guidelines, as everybody is still trying to navigate everything with COVID. But if you haven't yet signed up for January through April dates, registration is currently open. I am anticipating there will be the normal June administration, however, whatever format, I don't know, but that there will be one in June and probably one in July. So we'll have to see what LSAC does about the future test dates after the posted ones in April. Okay, so why do applicants need to take the LSAT? Other than, just to give you great stress and anxiety, it's one of the few things that schools can use. It's really one of 2 quantitative elements, the other being your undergraduate GPA. We use it to assess your critical thinking skills, and because the GPA can fluctuate depending upon what school someone went to, the major that they had, when they went to school, and all of those things, right? GPAs are, there's a lot more variety amongst them. The LSAT, not so much. Everybody's within the same score range, right? Regardless if it's the LSAT or the Flex, the score range is a 120 to a 180. And it, for lack of a better way to describe it, kind of normalizes things. It also is indicative of your performance in your first year of law school. So you can see here on the slide, it refers to your preparation and performance. So the idea being you are fully prepared to take the LSAT, and that the score you ultimately get, that is what is suggestive of your first year of law school performance. Okay, so to compare the LSAT and the Lsat Flex, 2 or 3 major differences that you want to pay attention to. The regular LSAT is done in person. They had already moved to an electronic form of that, so they went from the old school paper blue books to the tablets, but they were done in person. They were 5 35-minute time sections. You can see there the topics that were covered. So 1 of each and 2 of the logical reasoning. The Lsat Flex is what LSAC debuted this past spring and has been really the mode of testing during the pandemic because it's conducted virtually. And there are certain, security parameters and whatnot that you need to make sure that you can honor, but you can do them from home. It's now 4 35-minute time sections, and it's 2 hours. So you, there's a missing number there, but it's there's only 1 logical reasoning, so there's just 1 of each section.
So the 4th one is the reading comprehension, or sorry, the writing.
The writing is part of each type.
4, okay.
Yeah. So there's always reading comp, logical reasoning, analytical reasoning, and the writing sample. In the traditional LSAT, there are 2 of the logical reasoning. They are not all scored. There's always 1 section that is unscored. The reading comprehension.
Question. I thought that the writing part was separate. It wasn't part of the LSAT.
It is separate. I'll get into that.
Okay.
But it is part of the test. Okay, so the reading comprehension, it's designed to prepare candidates for reading complex and intricate material. You might receive 1 passage or 2 related passages. There's several questions, 4 reading comp sections per test. And it can test you on humanities, natural science, social science, typically law-related things. Logical reasoning, these are designed to prepare candidates to understand, analyze, evaluate, and draw inferences. So it breaks it down there. Some of the topics that are included are politics and government, economics, medicine. They can come in the form of articles or editorials, dialogues, and advertisements. Familiarity with terms such as argument, inference, assumption, conclusion, and premise. The analytical reasoning, also known as the logic games, they're designed to help candidates prepare to understand the structure of relationships and draw conclusions. So you can read a passage up to 130 words. It describes a scenario, then you answer the questions related to it. There are 4 analytical reasoning sets per test section. Okay. The writing sample. If you have taken the LSAT before, and there were a good number of you that have, there have been varying rules or policies about the writing sample in the past year or two since the LSAT went digital with the tablet usage. So the current rule is you must have at least 1 writing sample on your record, whether or not it was from a prior LSAT or an upcoming Lsat Flex. If you do not have at least 1 writing sample, then your scores will not be released to any school. So it's important that you do complete the writing sample. The writing sample is done outside of the actual administration of the LSAT or Lsat Flex for that matter. So you do have additional time to do it. I would suggest you try to complete it within the first couple of days, just so that you're still sort of in that test mode and it doesn't delay any further your scores being released and being sent to schools. Plus yourself, you wouldn't see your own scores if you didn't have a writing sample. So you do not need a writing sample per LSAT or Lsat Flex administration, but you do need to have 1 on your record. So hopefully that's clear. You are given a prompt. You are given a prompt. There are no right or wrong answers in that prompt. And there are a few that are used for each administration. Schools vary in how much weight they give on this writing sample. One thing that I would say is it's kind of that off the cuff, unedited writing that we don't otherwise get. We expect your personal statement to be pretty close to perfection. It shouldn't have grammatical errors. It shouldn't, have any, any types of misspelled words or punctuation mistakes, anything like that. That's not the same standard that we hold to the writing sample with the LSAT.
Wait,
but
how do we
given that
submit?
you have some,
I'm sorry. How do we submit?
hold on a second. Hold on a second, please.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Questions are actually going to be at the end of this PowerPoint. There's only a few more slides, so if you could please hold. So you do want to make sure, though, that you form your argument. So take a few minutes before you decide which angle you want to take with the prompt and try to have a complete, justifiable, reasonable argument, whichever side you want to go with. That's what we're really looking for. Also for students who may be concerned, about how serious to take it. I can only tell you, you should take every aspect of the application process seriously. Some students in the past have been very casual with their writing sample. Sometimes they only write a couple sentences. Sometimes they write a poem, they tell a story. When it was on paper, they used to draw pictures. Those are all things that really undermine yourself as a candidate. So do take it seriously, do take some time, and don't worry about which argument you're making, because that's actually not part of the thing that we're reviewing. Okay, so the LSAT writing features, this is literally a slide from LSAC, but it gives you a little bit of some information there about what you would use. It includes things like spell check, copy, paste, and cut, copy, and paste. You have some accessibility features. There's a software to download, and then you can see there what the writing prompt, that's a sample, what you might see, and then there's the box literally that you would type in. So it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't have to be, incredibly lengthy. Usually several paragraphs, 5 to 6 paragraphs is more than enough. Sorry, my space bar here is not advancing. Okay, so the next slide is just going to have some contact information. And then I'm going to end the PowerPoint here in just a second, but I put my email address there. It's lgear@swlaw.edu. Our admissions office email is admissions with an S at the end at swlaw.edu. Please feel free to jot both of those things down. Other events you can find on our website, those are listed there. So I'm going to end this, take a couple questions, and then we're going to start with the panel.
Lisa, this is Nancy. That last slide didn't display those things, so I'll just put them in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Nancy.
You can, it was the admissions calendar and your contact information.
Yeah, and the admissions office one. Okay, so I couldn't see who was asking the question, but somebody asked a question about the writing sample. Who was that?
It was me. So my question was, it seems like the writing sample is somewhat detached from the LSAT, and I remember reading about it, and I remember reading something about what's the best way to do it. But if you're saying it's not actually, say, put there on the screen for you to do the day of the LSAT, then how do you access it in order to produce it for the LSAC or whoever it is?
I believe you're given a separate set of instructions to access it.
Okay,
It is detached. That your assumption about that is correct. It is detached. It didn't used to be when it was the paper format. You did it all in one fell swoop. But as soon as they went to a digital version on the tablet, which was over a year ago, at that point they detached it, and it's remained detached since.
Okay,
the thing that has fluctuated was whether or not LSAC required an applicant to have it. Some schools might have still required it, but there was a period of time where LSAC did not require that you have one on file. And that is the rule they have now reversed. So the original rule that you must have at least one LSAT writing sample has been put back into place.
And in any case, the conservative approach is have it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead.
I actually had a follow-up question for
sure.
the writing sample. Is there any benefit to having a second one? I see there's a minimum one. Would you take a second one at all?
I mean, I guess it depends on how competitive you think your application already is and what additional things that you want to do to perhaps strengthen your application. You know, you have to also consider that the absence of one may make a school feel like you are less serious about the prospects of applying. I can't speak for all of them, but that may be a takeaway that some schools have.
I'm sorry, the absence of the second writing sample?
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Meaning you missed an opportunity to showcase something else.
Understood,
Yes,
thank
Nancy.
you.
Can I ask a question out of chat that I think a lot of people might actually be wondering, which is,
absolutely.
Are we looking at the LSAT, someone who took the LSAT and received a score from an in-person LSAT exam differently than a score received by someone who took the Lsat Flex?
That is a very good question. The answer to that is no. LSAC has told us that there is no difference between the standard LSAT scores given and the Lsat Flex scores that are now being administered and given. So we, on this side of the equation, will consider them the same for review purposes, for scholarship purposes, et cetera.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask a question really quickly. Is there any, are applicants considered differently if they have the, recently LSAC allows first-time LSAT takers to do the score preview?
Mm-hmm.
Is that considered a cancellation technically? Or
if you cancel it, if you see the score, so in case others are not aware, if you're a first-time test taker, you have the opportunity now to pay before the test, I think it's $45, and after the administration, it's $75 to see your score. And if you are not happy with your score, you can cancel it. That cancellation, I believe, would look like any other kind of score cancellation. What I don't know is if schools will have any kind of indication that you have viewed your score. I honestly don't know the answer to that. In case that's a follow-up question, I don't know. It's not happened yet.
Yeah.
So my guess is we probably won't know, but I really don't know.
Okay, so if you preview your scores, technically, it's not considered a cancellation. Preview unless you
correct. It is not.
Okay, gotcha. That's what I want. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I have
Basically,
another
we get a
question.
score. We get a C for cancel. We get an A for absence, meaning you just no-showed. And then those are the typical types of notations that we see.
I have one other question. Okay, I'm 57. And so, and I remember taking my GMATs and going, oh my God, geometry. I haven't seen this since 10th grade. And I was at the time, I don't know, call it 28 something. And so looking at the LSATs, it's like, okay, I just have to squish my brain into a different direction because I've been in the workforce for so long. I graduated from business school in 91. So, and I got a 780 on my GMATs. It just took a little while to squish my brain that way. So is the school going to give you a penalty if you get one LSAT score and then your second time you take it, your LSAT score is significantly higher? I mean, do they ask them or?
So we see all the scores that you receive. So if you get the score preview and you decide to go forward with it, we would obviously see that score. If you cancel, we see that you've canceled. We get every score otherwise. And so we'll see each one. And for review purposes, we do consider the variety of scores that someone would have received. So the general rule of thumb, at least at Southwestern, is if you score plus or minus 5 on a subsequent test, you should write an LSAT addendum. And that's literally what you would title the document. And you would try to give
plus or minus 25.
Well, 25 is more than 5, so that would fall into the same category.
Okay.
So you should try to explain. Sometimes it's as simple as preparing longer for the test, or if it's, taking a commercial prep company as your method of prep, whatever it may be. But that's the general rule of thumb, is plus or minus 5 or more points, to give some context to those changes. I will say that we have seen some folks who had taken the previous LSAT administration and then taken the Flex. Some have experienced pretty significant increases in their scores. I don't think that's unilaterally true, and that's certainly not our expectation, but some have experienced that. And I don't know if it's because the test is shorter, if they feel more comfortable at home, or what it may be, but that may be the case for some of you. And again, you should consider writing that LSAT addendum. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and turn over now to our 1Ls who are graciously spending part of their busy evening with us. If you don't know anyone in law school, you may not know this, but really there is no amount of time to spare when you are a law student. So the fact that they're even going to spend this hour with us is really quite commendable. So we have Francesca Villarreal, Tina Goodman, and Gore Syrian. I'm going to let each of them tell you a little bit about themselves, and then we have some questions prepared. So Francesca, let's go ahead and get started with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Francesca. I am an evening 1L student, which means I work during the day. So I work as a forensic social worker for the Public Defender's Office in San Bernardino County, and I have 3 kids that I homeschool. So I'm balancing a lot right now, and I'm very appreciative of Southwest and their evening program.
Thank you. Dina, you can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dina, and I don't have anything in my life as complicated as Francesca. I grew up in Thailand, and I, for the last 5 years, have been living in Australia where I did my undergrad. And I'm a traditional 1L student, so I have the normal hours from around 9 until 3:20, give or take. It changes during the day. And yeah.
Great. Okay, Gore.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gore Syrian. I graduated from UC San Diego in 2016, so there's a 4-year gap between my education, and I was kind of nervous to take the Lsat Flex there. I started studying in November and then ended up taking it in May. And now I'm here. I'm happy.
And now you're here. It was all worth it, I hope.
Yeah.
Okay, so for Francesca and Dina, how many months did you prepare for the LSAT?
So I, in total, spent 6 months studying for the LSAT, and that was due to the fact that I was meant to take it in March, and then it kept on getting pushed back, and I didn't take it until about the end of July. So about 6 months in total studying.
Okay, Francesca?
I'm about the same. I started in December, and I was very gung-ho about it. Was supposed to take it in March, And then COVID happened, the kids were home. So those last 2 months of studying was kind of So I would say it was very strong 3 months of studying.
Okay. And I can't remember, I know you've all obviously taken the Lsat Flex, but did any of you take a prior administration when it was just on the tablet or paper?
So I took the prior administration at Southwestern.
You did, okay. And how would you compare the two experiences?
The Lsat Flex, I felt a lot better being at home, being at your own desk. But the one thing you have to keep in mind is you don't get that 4 sections. I wasn't the best at reading comp, so I improved that just in case I knew that, you know, there wasn't a second logical reasoning section so I could make up my score. So I tried to do solid in all 3 sections.
Okay, that's great. Francesca, we'll go back to you. What kinds of tools did you use to prepare for the LSAT, or the LSAT Flex in your case?
So I was on an extreme budget, so I used everything that was free. So the Khan Academy, I used that. YouTube was my friend. I need to visually see things, have people tell me things in different ways. So I used like the focus approach LSAT program. Also looked at influencers like Angel and Sam and Cameron Monet, and it really broke it down for me so I could really understand what I was seeing on Khan Academy.
Okay, for those that don't know, Khan Academy is the organization that's partnered with Lscc for free LSAT prep, and it's done online, so one kind of transitions easily to the other. What about yourself, Dina? What was your method of preparation?
I also used Khan Academy, and I got a lot of books from friends who were thinking about taking the LSAT, and either they took it or they didn't. And so I mostly used Khan Academy for the bulk of it, and then closer to the exam, I started paying for Blueprint, which is another company that provides online learning. I didn't like Blueprint as much, but I would say Khan Academy, it worked really well and it was free.
Can't beat free. Now, Gore, between your 2 administrations, did you prepare differently? Did you use the same preparatory methods?
So I was using Blueprint, and like Dina did in the beginning. But what I did for the second time around is I bought I think they're called the Bibles. So it'll be like a logical reasoning Bible, reading comp Bible, logic game Bible. And those are really helpful to get you to understand like what the test is asking you to do. And I think there were $10 tests or $8 tests. I forget the website's name, but they would have a quick test, LSAT Flex format, and allow you to take the test and get your score right away. So that was nice.
Did any of you happen to know anyone that had used any kind of private tutoring? I know some of the test prep companies also offer private tutoring.
I did have a friend who used private tutoring, but it's very, very expensive.
It is very expensive, yes. Yes. Okay, any questions so far for our panelists? You can use the raise hand feature in Zoom, or if you take yourself off of if you put your camera on and actually raise your hand, I can call on you that way as well.
I had a question.
Okay, sure, Jessica, go ahead.
Are there any tips that you guys can give for the LSAT Flex? Like, I work in the same space I will be taking the test. So is there any like things that you see, like, I'm trying not to sit here all day now that everyone's like quarantined, but I know I have to clear everything. So like, you guys have any tips for us?
Are you asking from like a security standpoint with the way it's proctored, or just your mental health about it?
Both, because I have I have a separate work computer that I know I'll have to remove, but my screen, like my laptop is really small, so I have an extra screen, but I'm pretty sure I can't use it. And
That's
I have
correct.
like stuff all over my wall for work that I know I need to take. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to take down. So what do you have any tips or advice for, like, if in doubt, take it away, or are there things that they're more lenient on?
Francesca, do you want to take a stab at that?
Sure. So where I'm sitting right now is where I took my Lsat Flex. So my room looked exactly like this. So I do have a big screen TV over there. I do have some stuff on my walls. And when I did the perimeter sweep, they didn't say anything about it. As far as your mental health, I actually bought a Southwestern shirt specifically to wear it during the LSAT Flex. So that was my motivation. Like, this is where I'm going. So I need to focus during the test. And also, as I got closer to taking the test, I made sure to sit in this spot for the amount of time that I was going to take that test and make sure that I was comfortable. Make sure I didn't have to have bathroom breaks, make sure that I was hydrated, you know, just doing a walkthrough of what that day will look like. And I also made sure to schedule the test for when I knew I would be at my best, which was at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you need it earlier, schedule earlier, later, schedule early, but really schedule it for when you will be at your best. And make sure that you're comfortable, you're cool if you need to, you have your water next to you, and just ace the test.
Okay. Dominique, your question?
Yes, thank you. My question is, were there any technical difficulties with using Proctoru that you guys experienced during taking the test? And how was the experience from a tablet as opposed to paper for those who've taken the test on paper?
Gore, do you want to answer that?
Sure, yeah, I didn't get to take it on paper. I took it on a tablet the first time, which was kind of weird because I was taking it on the laptop before taking it on the tablet. So if you're going to take it on your laptop, you should continue to take tests on your laptop and just get comfortable with using it. There might be some technical problems, but Dean Gear, I'm not sure if they're still doing it, where they have a live proctor with you, so you can go on a live chat if you have any issues.
I think it's still the same.
Yeah, they'll answer any questions that you might have within a quick time frame, so it's really nice.
Just a follow-up question, you're saying that you can ask questions during the exam, but doesn't that hinder like some of your time?
Yes, it does. So it has to be a quick question. So everything was fine with the exam. I just had a question towards the end because I wasn't sure if the exam submitted or not, and I got a response within, you know, a minute or 30 seconds or so.
And did you use your own laptop? I know LSAT is providing tablets. So did anyone on the panel actually like borrow one of the tablets from LSAC?
I think they all use their own.
Thank you.
Thank you. I saw there was a question from Stefan.
Well, it's not a question, it's more of a comment. So I did sit for the July Lsat Flex, and I did have some technical difficulties on my test. So we did have a Proctoru, and I was told that the chat box would be open and they could hear me, but as soon as the test started and during breaks, that disappeared. So we lost the chat box and I no longer could communicate with Proctoru. So I don't know if that was just unique to me or if that happened to anybody else, but it sounds like maybe it was just unique to me.
No, Stefan, I actually heard people were having problems. Did you use your own equipment or did you?
Yeah, yes, I used a computer.
Thank you.
A desktop?
A desktop, correct.
Do you generally have pretty strong internet connection?
Very strong, yes. So I don't know what
are you over Wi-Fi or are you hardwired in?
I'm both hardwired and Wi-Fi. So it was working fine going into the test and through the instructions, and I had the chat box. But then as soon as I recognized I had a question or I needed to do something, the chat box was gone and the proctor could not hear me anymore. So the communication dropped. And even after the test, I kept asking, okay, well, what now? And I kind of froze myself in front of the camera, not knowing what to do. I didn't want to lose the test because something had happened. And so I just sat there for a while until probably 20 minutes after the test. And I said, okay, well, so then I called back in. I said, look, what's going on? And they said, oh, well, did the proctor tell you to tear up your sheets or whatever? It's like, no, there was nobody there. So they got back on and then watched me tear up the sheets, et cetera. And that was it.
Okay. What administration was that?
It was July.
It was July.
You mean the exact date? I think it was July.
Well, I just wondered if it was the May, June, or July.
No, it was July. It was July.
It was July. I mean, what I can tell you from all of the years of LSAT administrations, whether they were paper or tablet or now the Flex, is that unfortunately, sometimes things do go wrong. You know, it was fairly common in the in-person scenario, whether or not it was tablet or paper, that, you know, sometimes there was criticism about proctors starting, you know, on time or calling time too early. I mean, there's always been something, right? It's not a perfect process. So that can lead some students on occasion to wanting to cancel their scores because sometimes they feel like it was distracting or it made them frazzled or whatever it may have been. So that's one of the reasons why sometimes students do opt to take the test again. And that's a classic sort of perfect scenario where you would want to write an LSAT addendum and kind of just explain. Now, if you're perfectly happy with your score and you don't think there's anything that was negatively affected, then other than perhaps the jump up in score, you know, to say, look how awesome I am, these are all the things I did to improve my score, you may not have any other things to try to explain away. But if you do feel like there were technological issues that affected your performance, that's definitely something, you know, I would expect to see in an LSAT addendum. Okay, so I think Nancy asked me to ask the panelists the question of what are some things that you all may have done to improve your logical reasoning. Dina, you want to take that one first?
Sure. I'm just trying to think back because now it was recent, but it feels so long ago now that I've started law school. I think what really helped me was, of course, doing the questions and then looking into detail, explaining why the right answer was the right answer, especially for even if I got it right, just to solidify my understanding, because sometimes you might guess an answer and you don't remember that going back to it. So just really looking into the reasoning for why that answer is the right answer, because it's always
so just kind of reinforce the answers that she made. That makes sense. Gore, do you have anything?
Yeah, so one thing that Blueprint was really helpful at doing was kind of specifying the questions that you wanted to focus on. So if there's a necessary LR question, necessary versus sufficient, I had so much trouble understanding that. So what I did was I just made practice, they weren't exams, but they were practice sets. So I'll do 10 necessary questions, 10 sufficient questions, and then try to figure it out that way because it has an explanation as well.
Great. Okay, the next question up is, I hope I say this right. Please correct me if I'm incorrect. Is it Fidaling?
Oh, yes. Thank you. So I wanted to ask, so right now I'm kind of in a place where in the program that I've signed up for, prepping for the test, but also still trying to prepare for the application process. So what advice do you have for one who is either doing the same thing, or any strategies you would tell, like focus completely on the test and the preparation for the actual?
That's a really great question. When are you signed up for the test?
Sorry, November. I haven't made it.
So you've got a little bit of time. I would say at this point, focus on the test. It's early in the cycle. You can certainly submit your application even after you get your scores. And that's plenty early. So my advice is focus on the test. The one caveat to that I would say maybe is if you haven't already asked your recommenders to write letters on your behalf, I would probably do that simultaneously because you want to give them also about 6 to 8 weeks. But other than that, I wouldn't focus on the other parts of the LSAT, of the application until you're done with the LSAT.
Lisa, I have
Yes.
a question from chat that I think is pretty good. A couple people have kind of asked a version of this. How did the students who took the Lsat Flex deal with not being able to mark up the questions, you know, underline, highlight, take notes, whatever it is that you would normally do on paper, or if you had paper as kind of like an auxiliary part of your exam? How did you deal with that? If that's kind of how you are used to taking the exam, how did you transition to not being able to do those things or using the online tools that are available?
Okay, Francesca?
Well, I made a snafu in like the first month that I was studying because I didn't realize that it was digital. So I was still doing like the paper marker type of thing. But once I figured out it was digital, I just used all the tools online. So I was used to highlighting online or not highlighting, adjusting my reading skills to what I would be able to use on test day. So I would say just, for me, use Khan Academy. And also, I forget, is it the Lsat Plus program they have now that you can like do the free test on that mimics the Lsat Flex? And so I will use like their highlighter and their button that draws a line through the answer you think is wrong. So I would say just start doing that now so that you're used to it by the time it's test day.
Okay, Gore?
Yeah, so since I was using Blueprint and since I was working on my computer for most of the time, I was used to just clicking and highlighting, changing colors with the online tools and all that. So that wasn't too much of an issue for me. So I highly suggest, sorry.
It's okay.
I highly suggest taking it online and trying to do it on your computer or tablet, since we're going to be taking it online in the future.
To get that familiarity, yeah, that makes sense. Dina, anything to add?
I think those two have said it, and I also was pretty used to doing it on my laptop already because I knew that it was, I was used to doing it on my laptop.
And another question from chat, does LSAC provide a way to do a test run or like an equipment check in advance? Were you able to do that?
Francesca?
I believe when we signed up for Proctoru, it had us go through a series of tests and make sure our computer was compatible with their program. So I did that a few times just to make sure that I was okay for test day.
Any, Dina or Gore, anything to add?
No, I just agree with Francesca there. Make sure you get it done before the test day, just so your anxiety levels are nice when you're going into the test. And I found the website I was using for the practice tests. It's PowerScore LSAT test preparation. So you can find the Lsat Flex test there.
Francesca, there was a question for you in the chat. Diana asked, you mentioned that you could schedule your preferred time. Can you please explain that process? How far out in advance does LSAC email instructions?
I don't remember how far out they emailed it. But when I was allowed to schedule my test, I had the availability of like 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. So as soon as you get that email stating that you can sign up and schedule your test through Proctoru, do it immediately because those time frames just go out quickly. If you know exactly when you want to take your test, go ahead and sign up for it as soon as you get that email.
I was supposed to take the one from the one this weekend, and as I said before, I wasn't ready, so I chose to go into November. But so I saw what she said, but I saw the range of times, but it also included a range of about 4 days. So you have a huge range of times, but just, yeah, as she said, go on early so you can pick your ultimate times.
Yes, that's why they tell us now when it's when they've decided on an administration being a flex, they just describe it as during the week of. Most do take place during the first couple of days of that week that it's assigned, but some do straggle out a little bit farther. There's so many questions in the chat. If there are some you have asked and haven't gotten an answer to, please raise your hand. I'd be happy to take it live. Cecily.
Hi, yeah. Well, I don't have a question. I was just going to address the person who asked about how far in advance does LSAC send out the information for your testing. And like I said earlier, I'm taking mine on Sunday, which is technically like the October 3rd through the 8th or something like that. And I got my email on September 22nd. So they give you a little over a week to kind of get it together and schedule it. Yeah.
And did you get a time slot that you had hoped for?
Not really, because I wanted to take it on Saturday. But I was like, okay. And then when I actually thought about it, Sunday actually works better because I have like 0 to do on Sunday because I was going to kind of be squishing it in between other stuff I had to do on Saturday. So it actually worked out for me. And then also they send you the Proctoru everything. So I tested my computer, everything worked, everything was green. So now I just need to go ace the test.
That's all right. No big deal.
Right.
Fedeling, did you have another question?
Yeah, sorry. I hate to make a tangent, but I just want to know, in terms of the application process, if, for example, you set up to apply this year or for this admission cycle, but you're, for whatever reason, not you didn't get accepted into the school you wanted, can you use the same information that you've already submitted to the CAS for an application process for the following year or something, or you have to re-upload everything else, a new set of
Things like transcripts and letters and all that, it all stays in your profile.
Okay, got you. So if you wanted to make updates, you could, but it's not necessarily required.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Sedona.
Yeah, I actually, this is really helpful because I actually never received an email and I was wondering, I guess I need to contact them. But I am set to take like the October LSAT and I have still not received any like information about signing up. So I wondered, like, did they send it to everybody on the same day, or is there, is there any reason that you wouldn't receive that information somehow?
Have you checked all the things like your spam filters and all of that?
Yeah, I looked through everything and I was getting ready to call them. So I'm glad that somebody said that they received it like last week, because I definitely did not.
If we have other folks who are taking the test next week, can you put in the chat if you have received your email and by when you did, just so she gets an idea?
Yeah, my email was in my junk folder. I will say that. It was like in my junk or spam folder. I had to actually type in LSAC for it to pop up.
Okay, so one other person said they also received it on the 22nd. A third person on the 22nd. So it looks like the 22nd might have been the single date that they emailed it out.
Lisa, there's a good question kind of further back in the chat for the panel. How do you prioritize studying for the Lsat Flex when most Lsat, I assume she means practice tests that the person has access to, are the 3-hour test versus the 2-hour Lsat Flex? How can you best get an accurate depiction of your score from these traditional tests as compared to the Lsat Flex version?
Okay, Dina, you want to take that?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity with Blueprint to take proctored Lsat Flex practice exams. However, they were never at a time that was convenient in Australia. They were always like 3 a.m. Australian time. So I didn't get to do that. So I would do a normal full LSAT, but I would only do 3 of the sections. And if there was a second logical reasoning, I would just skip all those questions. And it would pop out a score that wasn't really relevant to my situation. So I would count up my raw score, just the questions that I got right. And I think on Blueprint, or you can probably Google another website, they tell you what your raw score would be converted into an LSAT score. But they give you like a small range because it can kind of change depending on how well the whole group of people taking that LSAT does.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think generally you probably can't go wrong taking the longer practice tests, because it does help build up, your stamina. And for some folks, the time of the test, or the duration can be challenging.
I did start with the full LSAT for preparation, and I found that my score personally would fluctuate quite a bit, because sometimes the experimental section was the one that I did worse on, so my score would be higher, and then sometimes the experimental section would be my best section, so my score would overall be lower. So that was an issue that I found with doing the full one. So personally, I liked the Lsat Flex for that reason, because my score wouldn't really fluctuate.
Okay. Francesca or Gore, did you have anything to add to the response?
Yes, Dean. So the website that I mentioned, PowerScore, it does 4 sections, so there's no experimental section. And back when I was still studying in, May, they had 3 versions of Lsat Flex, so it would just be 3 sections, but the rest of the tests on there is no experimentals. It's just 4 sections, and like Dean Gear said, you can build up your stamina and your endurance that way just by taking an extra section.
Edeline, did you have another question, or should we just lower your hand?
All right, yeah, I'll lower my hand.
Okay, no problem. Stefan?
I have a question for Gore, since he seems to know a lot about the PowerScore. Are the questions that they give you on PowerScore the same as prior LSAT tests, or are they new questions derived by the PowerScore team?
So what it is,
They're meant to be similar.
it's prior tests. So it'll tell you which month, which year. Yeah. So
Okay,
PowerScore, LSAT, you definitely want to Google that. And it's inexpensive. It's like $10 a test. Sometimes it's $8 for the Flex test too.
Okay, thank you, Gore.
Of course.
Okay, really briefly for Jessica, the difference between the 4 versus the 5 sections, the 5 has 2 of the logical reasoning, whereas the Flex only has 1, so standard LSAT, double of those. The other sections are the reading comp, the analytical reasoning, and the writing sample. Juan.
Hi, yes, this is for the panelists. What did you guys do the day before the test?
Francesca?
Nothing related to LSAT whatsoever. I think I had a really good meal and I hung out with my kids and just relaxed and just left it all to God at that point.
Dina?
So where I was living, the lockdown was really intense. You could only be out for an hour of the day, and there was a curfew. So I spent the full hour outside, and it was also the peak of winter in July. But yeah, definitely try not to do LSAT related things, because you wanna relax your mind for going into this test, especially if you get anxious for tests, which I do.
Gore?
Yeah, one thing I would tell myself is, relax the day before, because what I did is I took 2 LSAT tests the day before, and my brain was kind of fried going into the day. So if I was to go back, I would just relax like Francesca and Dina did.
How many whole practice tests would you say you each did? Francesca?
Whole ones, 3.
Okay. Dina?
8, I think, 8.
Gore?
I think I did like around 20 to 30.
So left 3, 10 each administration?
No, so you're talking about practice tests, correct?
Yeah, but like whole practice tests, like
Yeah,
at one time.
tests. I took around 20. That's one thing that I wanted to get comfortable with, because I was struggling at the beginning. I was getting very low scores at the beginning. So I just tried to do every other day, try to take a practice test, the next day review it, and then do it over again. So I got pretty comfortable with the timing and all that, because that was an issue for me. The timing was a huge issue. So that's why I had to take so many tests.
Yeah, great. I mean, that is generally the advice we would give is, and I think Dina, you mentioned you get a little test anxiety. That can really mess with someone's timing, right? You can kind of psych yourself out or get distracted, or, in-person tests, you could have somebody coughing or tapping their foot or something, right? And that can really throw off a person's concentration. So I definitely agree with the idea that you can take it enough times to kind of build up a rhythm. You can kind of be more just in tune with it. Okay, we have about 10 more minutes with the students. So if you have some additional questions, please.
There's a question in the chat, Lisa, asking how long each of the panelists studied for the LSAT.
Yeah, do you want to go over that again, Francesca?
My schedule was according to what Khan Academy told me to do, because I put in the score that I wanted to get, and they told me how often I needed to study and for how long. So I did that, and then additionally, I would watch YouTube for another 20 minutes that night, and then I was done. So if my eyes started glazing over or I was just too wandering, it's time to stop studying. I never forced myself to study.
Dina?
I studied for about 6 months in total.
And Gore?
Yeah, same as Dina, 6 months in total, but I'll try to do 3 to 4 hours a day consistently.
Okay. Someone asked how quickly the scores are released. It's generally about 2 to 3 weeks. Any comparisons you can make between studying for the LSAT and your first semester of law school? I know Francesca, when you came in, we were talking a little bit about recalibration. Do you feel that it's the preparation to be a law student and to stay on top of everything in your classes is similar to what you experienced in studying for the LSAT?
Exactly. So when I first started studying for the LSAT, I was trying to study the way everyone else was studying, and it wasn't working for me. It took me a long time to figure out how I learned and how I'm going to apply that to the LSAT. And then starting law school, I made the same mistake, trying to keep up with the Joneses and study how they study, and it didn't work. And I was getting stressed out for no reason. But when I started highlighting the way I need to highlight and read when I need to read, then everything just fell into line.
Great. Dina?
I see the two as really different because for the LSAT, you're just more practicing. You can pay for other companies to teach you the way to answer the question, but most of it is just independent practice. Whereas for law school, when they say that there's so much reading in law school, it's not an exaggeration at all. There is so much reading and you're learning so much content. So when you do finally get past the content and you can start creating your own multiple choice practice test for yourself in preparation for midterms and final exams. The similarity that I do see is that for the multiple choice questions, there's always one answer that sounds really good, but it's incorrect. And I think doing so much of LSAT practice helped me with that aspect.
Okay, Gore?
Yeah, I definitely agree with both Francesca and Dina. You have to try to find your own rhythm. There was a lot I learned reading wise, taking the LSAT. Don't be afraid to Google a word if you don't understand it. Don't be afraid to do that. It's going to be really helpful for you in law school. So if I didn't get that practice, I would be struggling with my readings in law school. It definitely goes hand in hand.
Great. Dominique?
Yes, at the law school, is it all virtual or are you guys going in some days for in-person classes? So how is the curriculum now?
This fall we are all virtual. That's a mandate from the County of Los Angeles. And we don't yet know about how spring will be handled.
Okay, well, based off that, so my question to the panelists is how are you guys adapting to that? Like, what is the pros, I guess, and cons of learning virtually, especially in your first year of law school?
Francesca?
The big pro for me is commuting. So I live in San Bernardino, which is about an hour and a half out, depending on traffic. So just being able to just log in and be at school on time every day is amazing. Southwestern does a very good job of keeping us plugged in. So I'm able to go to different meetings and join different groups that obviously I wouldn't be able to do because of distances and working. So I think just being online works best for me. And also my graduate degree was from an online program. So I'm kind of used to just being online and virtual anyway.
Great. Gore?
Yeah, commuting and traffic. It's huge to, wake up and wash up and come and sit in class in Zoom. But the only downside is Zoom can get a little awkward at sometimes, like with the timing and, talking to each other and participating in class. So that's the one downside, but I enjoy it so far.
Yeah. Dina?
Because I just moved to LA, I haven't really experienced this notorious LA traffic, but I'm sure from what I hear, it sounds terrible. I would say a couple of cons are that it can be really challenging to make friends, especially if you have never spoken to someone, because most of your interaction is answering the professor's questions. You're not speaking to other students. But there are like applications and websites that are set up through Southwestern to help, like chat groups almost. And as soon as you do reach out to someone, they're super perceptive and like a friendship can form easily for that sort of thing.
I like to believe that's the community of people that we have.
I apologize. I just have one more follow-up question.
Sure.
So I know you guys have probably taken exams since you've been in school. Have they been open book or?
They have not yet had exams.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Thank you.
Some of you have midterms though coming up, right?
Yeah, we have a midterm tomorrow. It's going to be open.
And midterm tomorrow, open book?
But you have to print out notes. You can't look at your notes on your computer.
Yeah, it locks out your computer similar to how the LSAT does it.
So the primary grading process for law students is truly like one final exam. That's where you get the majority of your grade. Actually, Fabiola, our 2L student, do you want to speak a little bit to the way the testing is done since you've been through a year and plus of it?
Yeah, I can talk about the way it regularly is, or should I just talk about the way it is now?
Both. I mean, the number of exams is the same.
Yeah, so basically, I didn't really know anything about law school either. And when I got here, I was super shocked that your entire grade is one exam. Some classes you get a midterm, but it's only like 15%, 10%. So it's really not a lot. And I know it sounds like a lot of pressure, but just like the LSAT, I wanted to cut in earlier, but didn't want to cut anyone off. But just like for studying for the LSAT, the best way to study for your exams is to just take practice exams. It's all about the practice exams. And your professors, we use Canvas. I'm sure a lot of you did in undergrad as well. And professors will put up all the practice exams there and you can use them. And then you can do study groups as well. And so that's kind of like what you should do to study, but now it's a little bit different for like the virtual. So in the spring, it's going to be different now, but in the spring, we didn't have the locking of your computer. We kind of were able to pull up like a Word document. And so it was open book. And now thankfully, like it is still open book. However, our computers will be locked. So you still have to like, if you want to use your materials, you're going to have to print them beforehand. But it's still the same in the sense of like, we only have one exam. I do have one midterm for my constitutional law class, but that's it. And so all my other ones it's just one exam. And also it's like just writing. So a lot of times there is some multiple choice, but know that it's going to be like an essay and it's a lot, it's exhausting. Like when you're done with these exams, you're going to be so tired. Like you just thought more than you ever have thought in your life for these 2 hours to get it all out. And, you know, I don't mean to sound intense, but it is. And so I think you all just need to be ready to have that mentality. And that's another connection I wanted to make to the LSAT, is that the material really isn't the same, but you need to have the same attitude. You need to be committed and you need to be disciplined. Those are like your top two things. And again, you also need to be kind to yourself and know like when you need to take a step back. I think that's really important as well. But yeah, so just be ready for that. You'll get the tools. You'll get the tools you need to get there.
Thank you, Fabiola. Okay, so we are officially at our end time. I'm going to excuse our students so they can get back to preparing for these midterms that I didn't even know were tomorrow. I'm even more grateful that you spent some time with us. So thank you, Francesca, Dina, Gore, and Fabiola. You can all exit the room. Thank you so much. So appreciative of your time. I'll stay on for the next 5 or 10 minutes or so in case there's any additional questions that we didn't get answered. But thank you. Thank you very much, students.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck. Bye.
All right, thank you.
Be kind to yourself.
Juan, did you have a new question or is this from?
I did. I have a new question. For the CAS, should we buy that now or after we take the exam?
I'm sorry, the CAS report?
Yeah.
It's what's your subscription with LSAC, right, to how many schools that you want to receive your reports. So you just need to have done it by the time you want them to release your information to the various schools that you're applying to.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Stefan? Stefan, did you have another question?
I do. It's just a statement that you made regarding correlation between LSAT performance and performance of the first 1L.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious if that correlation follows through to 2L and 3L as well. And what do you attribute that correlation in the first year?
No, it does not correlate then to 2L and 3L year, but there is a correlation between your first year performance and your bar performance. So it does kind of make a leap.
Okay.
But not between the LSAT and 2L and 3L.
And do you think that's because of the preparation for the LSAT as it relates to preparation in law school in your first year, or just the kind of getting there with the critical thinking as you prepare for the LSAT?
You know, I mean, these are statistics that LSCC provides, so I can't speak to all of the various things that go into that analysis, I do notice very detailed. So they receive first year grade performance reports back from schools, and that's how they are able to do the statistical analysis and tell us if there's a correlation at our school and how much of a correlation. So it is by no means a be all and end all, right? There are plenty of students who, you know, obviously are admitted to our school, but maybe are scoring in the lower 25th percentile, say, for example, and who end up doing phenomenally well in their first year. So for those people, I would say it was not as strong of a correlation. Maybe they were just not great on the LSAT, but maybe when it came to being a law student, they really dug in and found, you know, their stride. It also happens in the reverse. Sometimes people have very high LSAT scores and don't perform as well as perhaps we could have expected in their first year. And that can also be for a variety of reasons, right? Sometimes life happens, or maybe they're just not as committed to being a law student as maybe they thought they would be. So there's always going to be, you know, these variations, but statistically speaking, there is a correlation between LSAT performance and first year performance.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Is Southwestern going to waive their application fees?
We give fee waivers. We don't, we technically do have an application fee, but we do give them pretty generously. I will put the email address back in the chat. And if anybody would like to receive an application fee waiver, you can just email us. Okay. We're going to be having, so Jocelyn asked if we're going to have another Zoom meeting on the law school application process. So on October 15th, we are going to have around the same time, I think it's at 4:30 also, we're going to have our mock admissions committee workshop, and we'll also have Blueprint join us. And I think they're going to do a preview of some of a couple test questions. But the majority of the program is going to be the mock admissions committee. So we'll have some excerpts and we'll break down all the different components of the application. So personal statement, letters of rec, addenda, character and fitness, transcripts, and those kinds of things. So it's probably the most nitty gritty. So definitely mark that down on your calendars. I don't know that it's up on our website yet, but it will be soon. And you are all very much encouraged to attend. Even if you did the personal statement workshop that we had a couple weeks ago, we'll have some different examples, and there's always new questions that get asked. So you might get some other inspiration.
Thank you.
Lorena, I don't think it's up on the website yet, but it will be soon. Any other questions?
I had a question, but I think you just answered it. I was going to ask about kind of like the split, like when you were talking about either like a high LSAT or low GPA or vice versa. Mm-hmm. I was going to ask like what would be like the tipping point or of like what other things would you be looking at in a person's application? But I think it was what you just said about the addenda and personal statement.
Right, all the answer to that question. Okay. Yeah, so the general thing I would say is I would consider the LSAT and the GPA, that combination, right? How they play off of each other to sort of be the skeleton of the application. And then you have the letters of rec, the personal statement, diversity statement, resume, other addenda, all of those other things really kind of give it the body. And that's primarily because regardless of what any one person's scores are, there's probably several other people that have something pretty similar. Okay. Right? And so it helps us differentiate from one candidate to the next. And that's why what you craft and submit, and these other things, the qualitative things are actually very important because it can make the difference sometimes, between one candidate to the next. And I've been doing this a long time. I can promise you every single year, when we get down to the wire right before the program starts in August, and sometimes there is literally spot for one more person. And I might just have a small little list, and those people could mostly look the same on, with their numbers. Right. But depending upon some of the other qualities, one person can stand out above the rest. So it can be that much pressure.
And I feel it, trust me.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. I wish you so much luck on the test on Sunday.
All right, thank
And
you, dear.
hope to see you at some of the future programs.
Definitely, just like I have been in all the other ones, I will be here.
Keep it going. So we do also have the Lscc Forum on Tuesday, October 13th. If you haven't signed up yet for that, you still can. There's a digital forum platform that you can access almost, it's almost 200 law schools around the country. Plus we'll have our own Zoom meeting where you can do a live video chat with members of the Southwestern community. So Cicely was there with us on the 26th. We might have some of the same faces, but some new ones. So you're welcome to join us back, Cicely. So we'll have students and program deans, and you'll get another taste of Southwestern if you'd like to join us. You're more than welcome. Make sure you get a swag bag. It's a virtual swag bag. You're going to tell them, you're going to confuse them.
Oh yeah, I should have elaborated. The swag bag at the forum, I loved it. It was awesome. Basically, you can go to check out as many schools as you want to, and each school has different documents, videos, but all the documents, they have a little link and it just says swag bag, swag bag, swag bag. And then at the end of it, you can click the top swag bag and it sends it all the documents that you click throughout the whole forum to your email address. It's very convenient.
Yep, it's definitely a really cool feature that they were able to incorporate. And if anybody was signed up for the September one, that booth is still open all the way throughout. So you can go back and visit it anytime. You don't have to wait for the live forum portion to access the materials. So in case you didn't know that, you can still access it. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and close out tonight's session. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you found the information to be helpful and hopefully calmed a little bit of your nerves. And I hope to see you back on our mock admissions event on 10/15. You all have a good night.